Welcome to today's Explainer. We're diving headfirst into an absolutely wild story of survival, impossible physics, and time travel. We're going to take a totally routine situation and flip it completely upside down, really forcing us to ask some massive what-if questions about history and the butterfly effect. So grab your boarding passes, because this is going to be a pretty wild ride.
So, think about this. It's the ultimate hook. Imagine you're on a perfectly routine trip on International Airlines Flight 42, just cruising from Washington, D.C. to London. You've got a good altitude, plenty of fuel, the weather outside is crystal clear, and then everything goes wrong. What actually happens when a marvel of 21st century engineering accidentally flies straight into the darkest days of World War II?
Section 1. The Mysterious Storm.
Notice just how fast this situation goes off the rails. Literally 1 minute, the flight path is totally clear, and the next, this unpredicted storm just materializes out of nowhere over the Atlantic. And this isn't your normal bad weather. The crew is looking at swirling black clouds wrapping around this bizarre blue energy vortex. As they fly through it, there's this jarring, instant shift from sunset directly into broad daylight. And honestly, the scariest part for any modern pilot, total, immediate loss of all satellite and GPS communications. The digital world just straight up vanishes.
Now, they aren't totally flying blind, though they are incredibly close to it. With all the modern comms down, they really only have one lifeline left. The sole surviving instrument is their analog radar. Thankfully, it's a recently upgraded avionics radar system. This localized tech actually still functions, scanning the immediate airspace around them. Without that, they'd be flying entirely blind in a complete unknown.
Section 2. Trapped in 1940 France.
Because as they soon discover, unknown airspace doesn't even begin to cover it. The real terror hits when they realize it's not where they are that's the problem, it's when. Let's map out this unbelievable timeline. Flight 42 departs in the 21st century. It hits that blue energy storm, loses all comms, right? But when it emerges below the cloud cover, they are definitely not looking at modern Europe. They are suddenly surrounded by vintage aircraft, anti-aircraft fire, and dropping bombs. And thanks to a couple of history professors on board looking out the window, they actually identify the geography of the French coastline and witness a staggeringly tragic historical event, the bombing and sinking of the RMS Lancastria. Using those visual cues, they pinpoint their exact location and time. It is June 17, 1940, and they are right over war-torn France.
Which leads to what has to be one of the most tense and, frankly, surreal radio exchanges you could imagine. Captain William Strong finally gets a hit on a weak analog frequency and makes contact with a British radio man on the ground named Corporal Nigel Sheffield. When the captain asks for the current date and position, Nigel delivers this incredibly chilling, kind of sarcastic line. I mean, he obviously can't comprehend that he's talking to a commercial airliner from the future, and the captain can barely process the horrifying reality of what date it actually is.
And you know, this perfectly illustrates the massive technological clash happening right there in the sky. On one hand, you have Flight 42, this massive commercial jet, doing 400 knots with advanced pinpoint radar, and all around it, 1940s technology. Slower propeller planes, early and super unreliable radio direction finding, and highly limited analog frequencies. It's basically a behemoth of modern engineering, trying to carefully tiptoe through an analog war zone.
Section 3. The hijack threat. Because when you trap terrified modern people in the middle of history's biggest conflict, the danger isn't just outside the plane. Inside the cabin, a rogue passenger decides to attempt an armed hijack. His goal? He wants to force a landing, use the modern history books they have on board to locate Hitler, and just end the war early. Which, sure, sounds heroic, but the crew fights back hard against it. They understand the terrifying fragility of the timeline. Their ultimate fear is that even a single mistake, or a crash, would hand 21st century jet engines and history books directly to the Nazis. That would absolutely guarantee global domination for the enemy.
And right when you think the stakes can't get any higher, Corporal Nigel drops a terrifying revelation over the radio. When the flight crew mentions the successful evacuation of Dunkirk, Nigel corrects them. He says the Allied forces were completely surrounded and lost 500,000 men. History is already broken. The war is going significantly worse in this timeline, which means absolutely everything is unpredictable.
So let's just tally up this impossible convergence of dangers for a second. Internally, they've got rogue passengers trying to hijack the plane. Externally, they are being targeted by advanced, anomalous German fighter jets that shouldn't even exist yet. Environmentally, They are burning through their dwindling fuel with absolutely zero modern runways to land on. And structurally, they've already taken fire. The hull is damaged and the landing gear is completely jammed up.
Section 4. Changing the war.
Faced with all that, the crew realizes they can't just hide up in the clouds hoping for a miracle. They have to take unprecedented action. So the desperate plan they come up with is just pure high-stakes ingenuity. Since their advanced radar is localized, they can't see far enough to find a way home themselves. But if they can somehow get that modern radar into the hands of the British forces on the ground, the Allies could track those German jets and help guide Flight 42 to safety. They basically decide to gamble everything by giving 21st century tech to the Allies.
The mechanical insanity of how they pull this off mid-flight is just staggering. First, Captain Strong has to slow the massive jet down to a dangerously low 150 knots, which seriously risks stalling the plane out entirely. Second, passengers literally crawl into the belly of the plane to manually force open the jammed gear doors. Third, they slice the modern radar unit right out of the plane's nose. And finally, they airdrop the thing using a makeshift parachute put together from a passenger souvenir shopping bag. I mean, it is a truly terrifying sequence.
When the captain finally calls out that the package is in the air, the tension is just palpable. The package drops down and, miraculously, lands safely near the Swiss border, where Nigel's men retrieve it. In that one single moment, they permanently alter the technological landscape of the 1940s. The British instantly have a massive radar advantage, turning the tide of the immediate battle and saving Flight 42 from the enemy jets.
Section 5. Return to the present.
With the enemy temporarily cleared out, survival just becomes a strict, terrifying race against the fuel gauge. Corporal Nigel, who is now empowered with this decade's advanced technology, uses the radar to locate another blue energy storm vortex. It's their only ticket home. Flight 42 makes a desperate dash through the skies, plunging directly into the anomaly. But right as they cross over, the absolute worst happens. The jet engines completely die. They are totally out of fuel. Coasting on pure momentum, the plane glides out of the clouds and manages a miraculous, unpowered landing on the tarmac of TXL Airport in modern-day Berlin. They actually made it.
But of course, the story has one final lingering twist. They're safe on the ground in Germany, and as the terrified passengers are evacuating, one person refuses to disembark. That history professor stays seated in the dark cabin, telling the flight attendant he has unfinished business. Looking out the window, he realizes a chilling truth. The modern world they just landed in, it might not be the exact one they left behind.
And that leaves us staring down a massive, provocative question. By airdropping that advanced radar to the British in 1940, did they actually manage to fix the broken history and restore their original timeline? Or did that single desperate act of survival just create an entirely new, completely unpredictable reality? It is a fascinating paradox that really makes you rethink the extreme fragility of history. Well, thank you so much for joining me for this explainer of the source material. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll see you next time.